What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey and welcome to another miniature rescue. This week, we're going to take a look at a first edition Necromunda box that I bought from an old lady down the street. This video is sponsored by Broken Anvil Miniatures, but more on that in a little bit. More often than not, I end up spending my time browsing eBay trying to score the deals. There are thousands of miniatures across the world that people are willing to give up at a good price. So naturally, that's the place to be if you want to find good mini to rescue. But there are a few other places. Every so often, there are other places that can yield amazing results. Craigslist and Facebook are a cluttered mess when it comes to minis, at least in my local area. I'm sure it varies from place to place, but where I live, it's usually pretty dry. That being said, not too long ago, I happened to be on Facebook and one of my saved for sale searches pinged, and I ended up immediately making a deal via text as I was getting in my car to go and pick it up. Craigslist and Facebook aren't the best when it comes to scoring hauls for Warhammer minis, but when a deal comes up, you gotta strike like a warrior before someone else gets to it, or you will almost always miss out on what are generally the absolute best hobby hauls that you can come across. These platforms are worth following. Just save a few search terms and make sure those notifications are on so you can strike when you get the call. It turns out that just down the street from where I lived at the time, well, there was a little old lady who came across an almost complete 1995 box set for Necromunda, a Games Workshop specialist game that many consider to be one of the greatest games that the company ever made. I made my way over to pick it up, and after giving the box a good shake to make sure there was something at least in the box, I seriously didn't bother looking, which was a pretty stupid mistake. But I was so eager to get home and start unboxing the thing that I barely said anything during the transaction. She was very nice about it and said that she got it out of a storage unit and didn't really know what it was. Her son kindly told her that she should put it up for good money, and of course, he was right, and it sold within 10 minutes of her posting it for 50 bucks. So, my stupidity aside, I got home and opened the box, and oh man, I was extremely happy and also disappointed. On one hand, the box contained all the minis. Some of them were painted, there was the cardboard terrain, unbent, never used, the main rulebook for the game, the quick reference cards for gameplay, and a very nice little extra box for the weapons and dice. And of course, 2 red whippy sticks to battle your friends in between games. Now every Games Workshop box has these, and they're always great, but really only for one purpose. The huge disappointment came when I realized that the only thing of actual value wasn't in the box. The modular bulkhead terrain that comes with this box set are probably the best terrain Games Workshop has ever made. There are several designs that come in the box and they all connect together so you can build the cardboard buildings. What really made them special is that they allowed you to use other materials like thin cardboard or foam core to build almost any kind of building and walkway that you wanted. You could also go as tall or wide as you wanted, and all with materials you could get at home or just about any kind of art supply store. The possibilities are practically endless with this type of modular terrain, and something that could easily be broken down and transported. Today, we are afforded some absolutely amazing sculpted terrain that comes in hard plastic. And while that's really great, and I certainly love having good looking terrain, it's never really been as modular and DIY as the old Necromunda Bulkheads were. So a huge disappointment from this box, but still 50 bucks was a great price to pay for just about everything. And even the box by itself is almost worth that kind of money. It's just so nice to look at. I just want it in my collection. As far as what's missing, yeah, the bulkheads, of course. But the other core rulebook for building your gang. While it's sad that it's not in the box, the rules are totally available online for free from Games Workshop, and there's a pretty nice community updated one as well. I'll link those in the description. So I'm not too disappointed about that overall. Plus, if I actually wanted to pick one up, they're like 20 bucks on eBay. Taking a look at the minis, they are almost completely untouched. A couple of them had a little bit of paint on them, but I know there wasn't really any primer put on before the paint because it kind of just rubs right off. So that's not a huge deal, and I'll be able to paint some of these up. The bigger issue is getting the terrain to actually work, because I want to be able to use this box pretty much as is and play some sweet, sweet Necromunda. Broken Anvil is known for their beautifully sculpted minis and unique designs. And now they've got a brand new web store with a wonderful selection of some of their most popular models. Models like Sir Tornavir, their Treant monster, and of course, more orcs than you can shake a stick at. They also released a special monthly design, and this month, BAM is offering this turkey paladin, for Thanksgiving. The Broken Anvil team also has a new campaign live right now called Forged, which is an enormous collection of fantastically sculpted 28mm heroic scale pre-assembled plastic miniatures. Together with 5e compatible content, you can choose between the Heroes box, the Enemy Encounters box, or get both with the Adventure box. And as this campaign grows, so can your haul. Dozens of free and purchasable extras are waiting to be unlocked and added to your collection. If you want a massive assortment of BAM's amazing miniatures without breaking the bank, then backing their Forged campaign is your chance. Links to Broken Anvil's website and Forged campaign are in the video description below. Thank you again, BAM, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to Necromunda. The first thing I did in order to procure some fine Games Workshop bulkheads was to head to eBay. Unfortunately, at the time of recording this video, there is only one listing for a set of 2 bulkheads, and that's just not gonna cut it when technically we need like 30 of them to make everything work properly. So the next natural step was to turn to 3D printing. I was hoping to find an Etsy seller who was just making them, just pre-selling printed versions, but I was kind of out of luck there. I did happen across a few different versions on Thingiverse, so I decided to download a few files and try them out. After I went through a few boxes to find my printer's power cord, I plugged her in and got the printing going. I started with a 2-piece bulkhead design that glues together in the middle, but that ended up being way too wide and didn't fit the profile for the cardboard pieces. So I dug a little deeper into the files that were available until I came across a modified version of the one I had just printed. The designs are pretty good, but they were kind of off. These particular files can be printed straight up and down and come with little supports that have to be cut away at the end, but this seemed like the perfect solution. So I printed out a tray of these guys, and what do you know? They're almost perfect. The terrain fits into the slots nicely, not overly tight, but I'm not worried that anything's gonna fall apart either. And the actual pieces were based on the designs of the originals, so there are ladders built into each bulkhead, where the 2-part ones I was going with before didn't. Seriously though, the design of the originals is really good. There are doors, partially covered doors to shoot through, and there are built-in ladders on each piece, so you don't need extra ladder bits hanging off the terrain. It's all in one package, it's really good. The biggest issue I ran into was the way I was printing. These are supposed to be printed on the build plate, but that means if there are any extra layers on the bottom, the slotted pieces that hold this stuff together won't actually slot in and fit properly. I ended up cutting down the excess resin and it worked okay, but these really need to be printed with extra supports off of the plate to make them work as is. I'm also putting the links to these bulkheads in the description if you want to print out your own for any kind of modular futuristic skirmish game. But definitely be aware that there will be some work to get them to function as intended. Okay, so I printed out almost 30 of these things. They need to be cleaned, cured, primed, so while they're drying, I'm going to turn my attention to some of these epic minis and get them ready to head into the Underhive. The models that come in this kit are pretty unique, to say the least, and in the very best way, they're weird looking. Compared to today's models, these guys are pretty small. All of the models come on 25mm bases and can be equipped with a variety of weapon options right out of the box. The poses are pretty simple as well, only including a couple of different poses for each gang with a fixed left arm, while the right arm is the one that you can swap out and create unique gang members that fit your style of play. They are elegant in a way that makes sense for a modular game like Necromunda, and I very much appreciate the way that they were thought out. Of course, they do leave a lot to be desired in the variety and size departments, especially when you see models from today, even in the new Necromunda. In the box, there was a very nice compartmentalized plastic box that the previous owner used to house all of the extra bits for this game. So it was easy enough to pick out a few weapon options that I thought looked pretty cool and glue them onto a set of 5 models from each gang. I decided that even though there are lots of weapon options right in the box, that I would glue up and paint a variety of 5 to start with and leave the rest off the models so that I could get a better idea of how each option plays. So let's get a few of these boys put together and ready to paint. What this game really offers players, both experienced hobbyists and newcomers alike, is the opportunity to create something of your very own that makes this game feel more special and unique. The terrain is modular, and you are encouraged to make your own. The models are modular, and you're encouraged to make alterations and additions to your gang as you see fit in this universe. Necromunda is essentially a set of rules that allow you to manage and micromanage a set of personalized gangers that fight each other in the year 40,000. So what you make of them and what they look like should be highly individual. Everything is left to your imagination beyond the pretty stock looking models in the box. Now I'm putting this section in now because it feels more relevant. But late in the process of making this video, I felt like something was missing, and almost missing the point of this game entirely. In the 11th hour, I decided to get out a big box of bits and make a couple of my own gangers. One using a Goliath from the box, and another completely from what I had just in my bits box. I didn't pre-build a stat block or decide what weapon options I wanted to find, I just wanted to let the process take me where it would and build a couple of models that made sense to me. I found a really cool Chaos model that felt like it fit into the Orlok gang that also comes in the box. Kind of soldiery, small and agile. Something that needed a couple of chain swords with bolters attached to it. I snipped off the arms of the model and replaced them with a couple of really cool looking weapons. I found an old banner without markings on it and decided it would make a pretty cool cape. A swinging chain that doubled as one of those fancy cape holders, like a safety pin on crack. And to top it all off, what I'm pretty sure is a tire with 42nd century snow chains on it as a shoulder pad, thus giving me an incredibly cool looking and extremely unique Orlok ganger that I feel pretty strongly tied to as like a model in a game. For the Goliath, well, look at him. He just needs a big gun. So I gave him one, and he looks prouder than ever to be hoisting up the biggest and boomiest gun in all the Goliaths. The real strength of this game is that you become attached to your gang, not just through the progression of gameplay, whether someone lives or dies, or gets new gear and stats, but by building the models and becoming part of the story you're trying to tell. It allows you to really engage with what's going on during a game and actually care about dice rolls in a completely different way than your average Warhammer game. These are singular characters and not groups of unnamed troops, so you want to do well, and you feel for them when they don't. So here are the two gangers that I built, the crazed Orlok and the not so smart but overly happy Goliath. These models really showed me what this game is made of, and I can't wait to see what happens when they meet each other on the battlefield. Oh, and please help me name them. They need proper Necromunda names, so don't hesitate to leave those down in the comments, and they will be forever immortalized in this box. Something that I really appreciate about these models is the fact that if you went out and picked up this game in 1995, you would get a proper introduction to painting minis. They aren't overly detailed and aren't all that hard to paint, but there are still some areas on these models that you can start to learn on and improve your painting. Each gang in the box, the Goliaths and Orloks, have 12 bodies, so that's 12 attempts at painting eyes and 12 attempts at painting skin. 24 if you plan on doing it all by yourself and not involving a friend. You should really involve a friend. Yeah. So you really get a chance to start off pretty slow and work your way up. For these Goliaths, I went pretty simple. I plan on creating more minis to replace these over time, so for now I wanted to go easy and just have some models to start playing. I started by priming them all black and going over them almost completely with white ink. That way I could use some contrast paints to speed up these parts. For the skin, I laid down a bright pink flesh tone. Over the white, it goes on a little quicker as well, so that's something to keep in mind if you're newer to painting. Still a couple of coats to get full coverage. Next up, I painted in the lower half of the model using black. That way I took care of the pants and boots, and set up the armor panels for a nice silver, which just looks better over a black base coat. I followed that up with some magenta in between the muscles and in the recesses of the face. For the hair, some bright green contrast paint to give this mohawk a standout look. It's worth mentioning that these models all look pretty similar. You have different weapon options, but the bodies are pretty much the same. By making the hair color different for each model, it allows you to pick out individual models really quickly and know where they are and what they're doing on the battlefield. So I decided on a variety of colors for this gang. Using a red contrast paint over the silver, we get a nice shiny red armor. It's nothing special, but it adds a little flair to these pretty simple models. I used the same red on the leather suspenders and some brown for the leather straps. A little black wash on the metallics and a quick highlight with bright silver that gives them a little extra shine, and now these models are ready to hit the ground running and start blasting Orlocks through some bulkheads. Being that there are almost 30 finished bulkheads, I had to come up with a quick and effective solution to getting these all painted and ready to go. I started with a quick overbrush of silver, something to get a metallic look on all of the panels but leave spots open that look like weathering. I used a brush to stipple on silver and streak it across each of the panels, and I tried to move rather quickly to avoid having them all look the same. In order to weather these down and get a realistic look in not a lot of time, I decided to water down some dirty down rust and randomly apply that over all of the panels. The effect is actually really cool. Where the rust dries, you get a nice variety of color and texture, and if it pools up in the recesses, it leaves a nice line that looks like water buildup. I did the same kind of thing as the metallic overbrush and tried to keep moving, streaking and blotting on the paint to get random effects. In the end, some of the panels did turn out better than the others, but I really enjoy the overall look and cohesiveness of them all together. And paired with the bright blue rusty look of the cardboard terrain, they work really well. Finally, it's time to assemble the terrain and get a game going. The 3D printed bulkheads worked out really well, and while some of the prints ended up not working exactly right, it still did the job and got these panels together. I'll probably end up replacing the ones that didn't turn out as well, and make sure to print them off of the build plate so the interlocking system functions properly. But overall, these look pretty proper. Necromunda is one of those games that a lot of people talk about and have very fond memories of. Sadly, I never got to play when I was younger, but setting up a notification on my phone and giving it time to work finally paid off, and now I can enjoy this game in all of its 1990s glory. Something that I love about this particular box that I got is that I can tell that it was used. I don't know how often, but someone and their friends got some use out of it nearly 30 years ago. Some of the roster sheets have been photocopied and filled out with eclectic names like Crank Smoker and Bloody Wanker, and my personal favorite, Burnin' Crap Bag.
Coincidence? I think not!
The point is, a group of friends years ago were sitting down together coming up with stupid names for these gangers and preparing to have a ton of fun rolling dice together. It's relics like this that I love getting used minis and games, because you can see glimpses of stories that groups of friends were trying to tell. And now that I have this box, it's time to tell my own stories. Thank you again for joining me on another Miniature Rescue. If you enjoyed something about this video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video. And of course, here is the finished Necromunda box. Thanks again.